and welcome inside another edition of IndyStar Preps Weekly. My name is Brian Haenchen, joined by Neddenriep, Akeem, Glaspie. Remember the name of the show, remembered who my co-hosts are, so we're off to a good start. How you boys doing?
Good. It's starting to feel like fall out here, nice and chilly and overcast. So
it's going to feel like summer in a couple days, though. I think it's going up in the 90s.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, that's not cool. We need to stay in the 60s and 70s.
I was waiting for my Neddenriep fall time is here tweet. And
that's right.
That's when I know it'll be official.
Me jumping in the leaves and splashing
around.
Frolicking
around in the apple orchard. Those are the best tweets.
Drinking my pumpkin spice.
Speaking about it feeling like football season, the Mudsock rivalry in my short time here has kind of felt like the initiation to fall. And my goodness, Kyle, you had a heck of a game this year over at was that IHSAA this year?
It was, yeah. It was, just atmosphere, first of all, was incredible. 8,000, pretty close to 8,000 fans. I was talking to the Fishers AD. He said they had to cut off tickets, basically. They sold out all the tickets they possibly could. And then all the fans surrounding the field, and just really an amazing atmosphere. So, but yeah, that was just the beginning. And then the actual game happened, and I really felt like Fishers, even though they ended up losing in overtime, for the large chunks of that game, I thought were the better team. And, they didn't end up getting it done, but I think that only adds kind of the intrigue to, what you'll see in the sectional, because those teams are probably going to play each other again in sectional 3, which goes through the north side of the bracket. But yeah, Kobe Martin and Carson Dunn ran the ball really well for Fishers, but HSE hit a couple big plays in the first half. They were down 14-0, 2 long passes for touchdowns, tied it. Second half, again, Fishers kind of controlled up until the fourth quarter. HSE didn't have a first down the first 14 minutes of the second half. But then Eli Brantman, they found something with him. I don't know what it was, but all of a sudden he starts getting loose. And, you're in there with about a little more than 3 minutes left, runs for a 47-yard touchdown. That ties the game. And that was kind of out of nowhere, that drive. They hadn't really done much offensively up until that point. Ty Braille hit a pass, then they get that long run, and all of a sudden it's tied, and place is going crazy. And then they get into overtime. Fishers missed. It was kind of a poor snap, unfortunately, on the extra point. They score on fourth down. Bad snap on the extra point. Lucas Mins could not get the ball down to be kicked. He tried to run, and really nothing was there. So then HSE goes in, scores, and wins. Kicked extra point, and they make theirs. So. That was just kind of, it's unfortunate it ended on a bad, the extra point was kind of a big, a big part of that game. But, I came away feeling like Fishers is probably better than I thought, and HSE is finding a way to still get when they're very good too. And we'll talk about them later, and both those teams later in our picks, because both those teams play really good games this week again. But yeah, it was a great game, great atmosphere. I think, I wrote this in the Monday column, but just a great, kind of a feather in the cap for Indiana high school football to have that type of atmosphere on Friday night. It was a fun game, and I'm looking forward to seeing those teams again down the road.
Where does that one rank for you in terms of the Mudsock games that you've covered in the past?
One of the best. I mean, there was one year, it was 28-0. I can't remember who won. Whoever was down 28-0 ended up coming back and winning. There was another year where the game was called there was a bad lightning storm, so we had to come back Saturday morning.
Oh my gosh.
And watch the rest of the game. And I think HSE won that one fairly handily. It wasn't a great game, but that was memorable because of that situation. And I think that was the same year Pike and Ben Davis had a game I covered too. Same situation. They had to come back Saturday morning and finish it. I don't really enjoy that as much. You want to get it done on Friday night, but now that we're doing, more stuff on Friday nights, that'd make it hard. But yeah, it ranks right up. It's probably one of the better games I've seen just generally. I mean, it's just a great game overall. And I thought two teams that are really legit, and we'll talk about 6A, and we've talked a lot about 6A, how balanced it is. And those two teams are right there, I think.
Kyle had an exciting game. Akeem, you're in my games. I was at Chatard Cathedral. You were at Franklin. Whiteland weren't quite as exciting. 21-0 Whiteland over Franklin to stay undefeated. What did you see, and were you surprised by that outcome, that it was so one-sided?
Yeah, I mean, I will say similar to Kyle's game, the atmosphere in Whiteland was great. Both crowds were engaged. It seemed like a sellout. So the atmosphere heading into the game was great. But, yeah, once the game started, it was kind of all Whiteland. Jonathan Crowley busted it open with the 64-yard touchdown, and then it was pretty much all Whiteland from there on. Franklin was playing without Max Clark, who he's actually playing for Team USA Baseball. He actually had a game-tying home run against Canada yesterday, which was pretty impressive for Max Clark. But without him on the football field, Franklin could not generate many big plays. the offense was just kind of methodic with Pinnock just kind of scrambling and not being able to connect, and they seemed out of sync the entire game. So credit to Whiteland's defense for really keeping Franklin off balance. And then obviously with Whiteland's rushing attack with Emberton there and Crowley and all their running backs and receivers, everyone gets involved, the motion, and it's so hard. You have to be so focused on defense and so keyed in on your responsibilities. And Franklin, they didn't do a bad job, but Whiteland was just too strong. So, yeah, I was definitely surprised at the outcome, but I mean, with all the extenuating circumstances, it was just hard for Franklin to kind of keep up. And once you get behind on a team like Whiteland, it's really hard to get back in the game.
Kyle, were you taken aback, I guess, by the result of that game?
A little bit, but I think it kind of proves, too, just how good Whiteland is. I know we talked about it last week, but, yeah, if you're running for 300 yards a game, and they keep doing that, against no matter who the opponent is. So, I think that speaks pretty highly to kind of where they are right now. And I'll be curious to see kind of that Mooresville game still lurking out there, and that'll be a huge game down the road. How do they – the Mid-State's really good too. I mean, with Franklin, Decatur Central. I mean, Martinsville's better this year, so it's just a really good conference every year, but especially this year. But I guess we got to quit being surprised by Whiteland. They're just really good. I think very deserving of that number 1 ranking in 5A.
Absolutely. Was that your first time seeing Whiteland this year, Akeem?
Yeah, that was my first time seeing Whiteland.
Okay. I was going to ask if you had a base or reference, but first time through seeing them. Do you think they're pretty legit, though, come away from that one pretty impressed with them?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, they're a well-oiled machine on offense and on defense as well. Again, I talked about this last week with LC. I mean, if you can generate consistent pressure on defense, it's going to be so hard to generate consistent offense on the other sides, and Whiteland was able to do that. So, yeah, no, on both sides of the ball, they look really impressive. So, yeah, they definitely deserve to be at top of 5A.
For my game, I was here at Chatard High School where they were playing Cathedral, and it looked like maybe it was going to be close there for about a quarter, and in fact, Chatard intercepted a pass right before the end of the first quarter, drove into enemy territory, and it looked like they were going to threaten to score. Just based off what I know about them from the past, and then watching them on that night when they had a chance to show off as a well-oiled machine a little bit.
And kind of an odd schedule. They're off this week,
yeah.
And then they play Hammond Morton next week, who's 0-4. So it'll be they'll go off the radar slightly for a while, but that Week 9 Center Grove game lurking out there, and that it's maybe not quite as anticipated or whatever as the last couple of years, but I'm still really looking forward to seeing how those teams match up down the road.
That's a great spot to talk about Center Grove, and they had a dramatic come-from-behind win over Ben Davis, didn't they?
They did, yeah, 35-34. And again, I was trying to follow stuff on Friday. It's hard to do that when you're covering your own game, but I saw they were down by 13, 27-14 against Ben Davis. And we talked about this game last week and thought it'd be a really good game. Then all of a sudden the final pops up. It's like, wow, how did that happen? They scored 21 points in the fourth quarter, and really, it's been sort of a weird. They haven't really run the ball really well, and Drew Wheat's been out with an injury, but they've moved Thompson over to the running back from the defense. But they haven't run the ball great. But Tyler Cherry and Noah Coy have really established a dynamic connection, and he was almost 200 yards receiving, and Cherry, I can't remember his exact, almost 300 yards passing. But that Center Grove team, they just have this, and I wrote about this too, but just kind of that championship pedigree where they seem to find a way, and Eric Moore always plays up the, no one believes in us, blah, blah, blah. Well, I mean, that's not true exactly, but I get, he kind of is able to build that up, and Also, I mean, Ben Davis, I think is, they've proven these last few weeks they're going to be a handful to deal with. And I really think with Gotkowski, and he put up big numbers again. Marcus Reese at receiver, similar numbers to Coy on Friday. So, they have and Price was they weren't able to run quite as well. Neither team ran the ball for a lot of yards, but through the air Ben Davis is probably better than they've been. And they've had some good passing teams here lately, but this may be their best offensive group. So Ben Davis, I'm sure, is like, man, we let that get away. But, from an unbiased perspective, it's like I really, probably them and Fishers both, you kind of look at those games and you're like, man, those are legit 6A contenders, I think.
That's amazing, like with Center Grove, just that ability to pull out those late-game wins. It's just that championship pedigree where they know how to win, they know how to close out games, and it seems like they find a way no matter what, no matter the situation. I saw them do it against Carmel. We just talked about what they did against Ben Davis, and I'm surprised, honestly, that they didn't do it against Trinity the week before. It just once you develop that championship mindset, it's amazing. And then for the other side, like you said, I mean, Ben Davis, I know close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, but in a regular season, it doesn't really impact the standings necessarily, and what where you're going to end up or who you're going to play in the postseason. It's basically a meaningless regular season.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot more positives, and it should be, I would think, a lot easier to take away positives when you're playing with Center Grove like that, or from Fisher's perspective, having gone down to the wire with HSE and it just coming down to sort of like a fluky play and on an extra point. I think that it should be easier at least to draw some positives from that sort of thing.
Yeah, and we look at, you look at records and stuff, and it's like, it's funny how like one little play like that or a missed snap or the 2-point conversion Center Grove had against Trinity, and then all of a sudden you lose that 30-game winning streak, and all it really came down to was one 2-point conversion attempt, and it's like, well, I mean, you're right there. One thing different happens, and you still have that winning streak. So it's like, a lot of things where it's more than that one play. There's a lot of things that go into it, but also, it really does come down to that one play when you're talking 1 point. But yeah, I think, and we'll talk about this too, but Ben Davis is now in a spot where they're 2-2. They really need a win this week. Warren Central, who they're playing this week, they lost. So you're going to have two hungry teams in that East Side-West Side rivalry, which I'm looking forward to seeing Friday, and two really hungry teams that are going to get after each other. So that'll add another kind of layer to that. Even though both teams lost, I think will still be a really good game Friday. For
both of you guys, any surprise or anything stand out to you as you were scrolling the scores and looking at the outcomes from Friday night?
Yeah, I think what Kyle was saying about Warren would be LC beating Warren.
Mm-hmm.
That was something we kind of talked about before the game, is just how impressed I was with LC's defense, obviously with Cunningham and Mickens leading the way. And I believe Cunningham had an interception, then Ahmad Duff with a long touchdown to start the game. And LC's, they weren't able to generate big plays against LN the week before, but if LC's clicking like that on offense with that defense, the defense has always been very impressive to me, and they showed again against Warren what they can do with the playmakers that they have. So that, I don't know if it's a surprise that they beat Warren, but it was definitely impressive. So that's kind of what stood out to me.
Yeah, one thing too, Edinburgh 4-0, that has not happened since 1961.
Wow.
It's kind of a long suffering football program. Good in other sports. For whatever reason, football is kind of a long history of struggling. So Tyler Despain, congrats to that program to be 4-0. They've never been 5-0 in the history of football there, and they play North Davies on Friday, which will be a tough game. But we don't talk about some of the smaller schools a lot, but yeah, that's for a 1A program. Good to see them. It's cool when teams that have been down for a long time start to do some things, and so that was kind of not really surprised they won, but the fact that they're 4-0, I'm sure raises people's eyebrows who follow high school football. And also Noblesville almost beating Westfield.
Yeah, how about that?
Yeah, that would have been. And they just can't quite get over that hump, and we'll talk about them later too in our picks. But they were a 2-point conversion away too from winning from beating Westfield. So Westfield's kind of going through. They're young in some spots, and Dylan Thieneman's out with an injury. Hopefully he'll be back. Probably in not this week but next week. So they're missing some guys and trying to find themselves a little bit too. And Cole Ballard had a good game for Westfield and at quarterback, but. Yeah, Noblesville is right on the edge. It seems like they've been there these last couple of years, and they just can't quite get over the hump. But they'll have another chance Friday to do that.
Well, they were down. They came back. They had an extra point to tie, 2-pointer to win. They went for the 2.
Yes. I think about a minute left and decided to go for 2, didn't get it. So, yeah.
I like it. Go for the win. Just like, why leave anything else a chance? I get them. If you got all the momentum as it is, you don't know if you're going to get a chance like that again. Go for it.
Right, and you can always. I'm sure Dave Sharp looks back, and you kind of probably agonize about that, or second guess it if you're in the stands or whatever. But hey, I mean, go for the win and roll the dice. I like it too.
Yeah.
I think it's even though it ends up maybe looking bad, or you end up but who knows, maybe you get the extra point like in the Fishers game.
Exactly, yeah.
So you never know.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Anything else you boys want to touch on before we get to picks and the big announcement?
I'm ready for the big announcement now.
I want to hear this announcent.
I don't think you want to hear it, Akeem.
Oh, okay. Maybe not. Then. Let's skip that part then.
Records last week, Akeem finished 7-3, which is respectful. It's fine. Kyle went 8-2, which is a game better. And in this case, it puts you two at a dead even tie, we believe.
Wow.
We're fact-checking it, but we're 30-10. I want it on the record that this was sent over by Kyle. So we're working to confirm, but Akeem corroborated the numbers earlier in the day. We need Clark and I to go through it because we're both independent. The independent parties on this, but we're proud of Akeem for battling, but I think it feels like Kyle's coming.
What? I feel that way too.
Oh, wow.
I gotta be honest with you.
Clark and I were talking the other day, we were sitting there breaking down the games, and we were just so impressed by your scrappiness and the way that you scratched and clawed back. We love an underdog story, Kyle.
Yeah, absolutely. I got a chip on my shoulder. What can I say?
Let's get into this week's picks as Akeem tries to reclaim the first spot while Kyle feverishly nips at his heels. First up, let's go Brownsburg 4-0 at Fishers 3-1.
Yeah, I'm going Brownsburg here. I know Kyle was really impressed with Fishers in the fight, and I love their offense. But Brownsburg's offense is one of the most explosive offenses in the state. 41 points per game. Whitaker leading the way at quarterback. Sherrill's a very talented running back. I'm going Brownsburg.
Yeah, I had a chance to talk actually with John Hart last night and a couple of the Brownsburg players, and they definitely, that Fishers game, they were able to watch some tape and see, and they're definitely impressed with Fishers, and rightly so, and I think they know what they're up against, and they're sort of similar teams, really. I mean, they're balanced on offense, athletic on defense, both of them are. But Brownsburg has won 6 in a row in this series. I think they match up pretty well with Fishers, and I think they've had a couple weeks of maybe playing, you don't want to put any opponents down, but maybe opponents where they were sort of, feeling going in like they knew kind of they were going to win the game, and they beat Avon handily last week as we saw. So I think they'll be fired up for this one, and I kind of like Brownsburg to win too. I think they're slightly the better team here.
We touched on it briefly earlier, but two hungry teams desperately looking for a win. Ben Davis, Warren Central come in with matching 2-2 records. Kyle, who's going to come out on top in that one?
This game is one of the oldest rivalries, the East Side West Side rivalry. I'm looking forward to seeing this in person Friday. I'll be at this game, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. If you remember last year, Warren Central won 57-56 in one of the wildest games of the season, and that's kind of the history of these teams has been you can somewhat, it's a cliche, but somewhat throw the records out and just have fun watching a game because that's the kind of series this has been over the years, and two really storied programs too. A lot of intertwined pieces. Mike Kirshner led Ben Davis to state championships twice, 2014 and 17. And now he's coaching at Warren Central, which is his alma mater. Jason Simmons is, I know those two are close and know each other really well, obviously. So a lot of, they've got staff who've been at Warren. So just a lot of things that are intertwined with those two programs. I think Ben Davis is just the better team right now. I just really do. And I know we just talked about him a little bit. And Warren's got to quit turning the ball over. So, they can't have 4 interceptions. And, if you're going to have any chance to pull off this game, they're going to have to play better. But I do think they're capable. If they play like they can and get some of those explosive plays, get the ground game going a little bit, I think they're definitely capable of winning this game. They always are, of beating any team. But I think Ben Davis is just a slightly more solid team right now.
Akeem?
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, Kyle talked about the turnovers, and Ben Davis has a great linebacker, Nyland Brown. He's a Division I type recruit and an athlete in the middle of that defense. So when you have that, you can create turnovers and stop some big plays. I think that'll be key. So I'm going Ben Davis as well.
Hamilton Southeastern puts its undefeated record on the line against Westfield on the road, 3-1.
Yeah, I mean, I was able to see Westfield week 1, and I feel like they've continued to improve. Obviously, 3 wins in a row. Cole Ballard, like Kyle said, is really coming to his own, kind of as a dual threat as well with rushing and passing. So I think Westfield will get it done.
Kyle?
Yeah, I think, Brian, you might have covered this sectional game last year. HSE played Westfield really close and almost beat them. If I remember right, I think you're at that. But it was, so I think that's going to be sort of in the back of HSE's mind. Both these teams played tough games last week. So how does that factor in to this week? Because they didn't have a chance to rest anybody. They both won 1-point games. But I kind of like the way HSE just kind of has a swagger about them right now. I think Westfield's maybe, I think they're ripe maybe to get beat in this game. So I'm going to take the Royals, though. I think, again, should be a great game. That's, again, a toss-up type of game, and we're both picking different teams, which I think kind of shows that.
First game of the week where they differ on is HSE Westfield. Next game up is Mooresville 4-0 at Decatur Central 2-2. Kyle?
Yeah, this is a backyard brawl type of a game because Mooresville I know there's not a lot of love lost. They're conference rivals. I know Nick Patterson, from doing our photo shoots and stuff this summer. This is a game that they, even though they have tough games the first 4 weeks, they look forward to this one. It's sort of that type of a. It's like the Pitt, West Virginia, whatever they call that, the backyard brawl. So I think that's that type of a game this will be. I don't think it'll be super high scoring. I think they're going to have to grind out a win. Decatur's coming off a really good win over Martinsville last week, so they should be having some confidence now. They're 2-2. But I just think I think Patterson is the X factor in this game. He's going to run the ball. He's running it more than he did last year. It's kind of more like his sophomore year. And I don't think he's going to let him lose. I'm going to pick Mooresville to win.
Akeem?
Yeah, like Kyle was saying, I love a dual-threat quarterback. Nick Patterson, 12 passing touchdowns and 7 rushing touchdowns this season. Again, like Kyle said, I just don't think he'll allow them to lose. He'll kind of will them and put the team on his back if he needs to. He's shown the ability to do that before. One of the better dual-threat quarterbacks in the state, I believe. So I think Mooresville gets it done.
As we reach the midway point, we have Carmel at Lawrence North, both teams with identical 2-2 records. Akeem, what's your read on this one?
Yeah, I'm going to go Carmel. I really like what Casimir Zach is able to do at quarterback. He's really airing it out, 15 yards per completion. He's kind of coming into his own, and I love the connection he has with his receivers. So I'm going Carmel.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Akeem, but again, I think, and it seems like I say this on every game, but it seems like Carmel, going back and looking, they beat Pike 34-14 last week. But they really didn't. It was kind of a weird. They didn't really have a lot of offense for a large part of that game. And Pike, I think, is still. I know they're winless right now, but I think better than that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they showed that against Carmel. Winston Berglund had an interception for a touchdown, so that added another score. But I think Al Lynn's one of those kind of wild card type of a team, and I think it'll be. Yeah, I think they're capable. I don't think I think this will be a good game, is what I'm saying. But I do like Carmel to win.
Heritage Christian 3-1 at Atcina 4-0. They're playing this game at Beech Grove, Kyle.
Yeah, it is at Beech Grove, and this is another rematch of last year where Heritage Christian won in the regular season. Kyle Antone got hurt right before, I think the week before they played in the playoffs. So first week of the sectional, they played each other. He wasn't able to play, kind of ruined their whole game plan. They had to move one of their best receivers to quarterback. Atcina beat them fairly easily in that game. So I think Heritage Christian is going to be ready for this time. They're going to have fully ready to go with Antone at quarterback. But I think Atcina's running game is going to be the key. I think, DJ Mendez also, he was one of our 3-sport athlete players we wrote about at quarterback for Atcina. He's been playing pretty well. I just think overall Atcina is going to have the slight edge here and beat Heritage Christian. And these teams not in the same sectional this year, so they won't have a rematch right away anyway in the playoffs. But yeah, I'm going to take Atcina to win.
Akeem?
And Kyle almost swayed me with Antone. He's definitely a wild card, and I really like him at quarterback. But I'm actually going to go Atcina as well. I'm really impressed by their defense. They've only allowed 21 points all season. Mason Burrell is their leading tackler. Tamir Woods and Adam Young have 10 tackles for loss each. So, again, I love pressure. And if you can get pressure with your front seven, that's always going to be key. So I'm going Atcina.
Akeem, a team that you covered last week, Franklin 3-1 hosting Martinsville 3-1.
Yeah, like I said, unfortunately, I don't believe Max Clark will be playing. Again, he's in Florida playing baseball right now. So without him, the Franklin offense is just at kind of a deficit. I picked Martinsville last week. They weren't able to get it done, but I think they will be able to get it done this week. I'm going Martinsville.
Pausing on Franklin real quick, and I should have asked this earlier, I apologize, but how have they tried to adjust with Max Clark when he's on these baseball trips?
Well, obviously the vertical passing game is gone because, I mean, in Mac's first game, he had 2 long touchdowns. So that's kind of gone. They go with their running backs, and then Pennick, obviously, with his short passing and running as well. And the running game was just pretty much non-existent. They weren't able to get it done. So not adjusting well, I would say. But you never know. It's week to week they could change on offense. But from what I saw against Whiteland, they were struggling. So maybe they need to change up the game plan and maybe, I don't know, open up a little bit more with Bo Baker. He was kind of the main playmaker that they had at wide receiver and running back. So maybe just get the ball to Bo Baker more would be a good kind of adjustment. But again, they were definitely at a deficit without Max Clark.
Kyle, who you got in this game?
Yeah, that is a concern with Clark because that takes away your best offensive weapon. But I'm going to take Franklin. I think they're going to bounce back and I think they're going to be come out motivated after last week's loss to get right back on track. But again, mid-state game, these games have been traditionally close, and Martinsville, I think, even though they lost by 3 to Decatur, I think kind of shows that they're definitely better than they have been. Especially on the defense, sometimes when they're good, it's kind of a high-scoring type games. To hold Decatur to 17, I think, was impressive. But so I think this will again be similar, like a 17-14 game either way. But I'll take Franklin.
Fantastic. Noblesville at Zionsville. Kyle, who you got?
I'm going to call for the upset here. I think Noblesville's finally going to get over the hump and win a close game. Although Zionsville has been, it played, really well. They had trouble last week against Franklin Central, but if you look back last year, Franklin Central beat them, so it might be a matchup type of a thing, and they were able to pull it out though. So, but Noblesville seems like they're on the come up. Can they get over the hump? I don't know, but I think maybe this is the week to do it. So I'll take the Millers.
I'm not taking the upset. I'm going Zionsville. I believe their passing attack is coming on with a name that's probably familiar to most fans in this area, with a young Eugene Hilton at wide receiver and Wrigley Baumgarter as well. If you didn't know, Eugene Hilton is T.Y. Hilton's son, so kind of a lineage there as a playmaking wide receiver. So I think he's been coming into his own. The passing attack is kind of finding its legs and getting going. So I'm going Zionsville.
TriWest at Danville. It's a good conference rivalry.
Yeah, I expect a lot of offense in this game. TriWest averaging 48 points over their last 2 games. I'm going TriWest.
Yeah, this is another kind of that backyard brawl. They're neighborhood rivals. Ty Owens last week, I think our intern Wilson covered that game, and he ran the ball all over last week against Western Boone, which I can't remember. I picked Western Boone, I think, and you picked TriWest, so I got it wrong. I'm going to pick against TriWest again. What the heck? I'm going to pick. I think Danville. They're a team, again, you're 2-2. I don't think that really speaks to how good they are. And this game normally has been really close, and it kind of can go either way. A lot of emotions, and obviously these kids know each other, having competed against each other. A lot of these multi-sport guys, they play against each other in basketball too, or baseball. So I'm going to take Danville. I think, again, that's probably a little bit of an upset pick, but maybe I'll let Akeem get ahead of me again and try to catch up to him.
Kyle likes playing from behind. We've learned that this season. It's a different Neddenriep. Finally here, as we round things up, Indian Creek at Triton Central. Both teams come in at 3-1.
Yeah, again, this is Triton Central's been putting up monster numbers. Jay Stuckey at quarterback, and I think Indian Creek is definitely on the come up too with Casey Gillen and that program. They're starting to put up numbers like he did when he was coordinator at Mooresville. And there's a reason that they kind of got it. It's not only Mike Gillen. He's the kind of the guru of the passing attack, but Casey knows a lot too. So I think this will be a fun game. I'm going to pick Triton Central, but I think, again, this could be one of those type of 42-41 type of games.
Yeah, and Kyle talked about the passing attack. Arj Loth is leading the way, 250 yards per game. He's a big 6'4" passer. He's also a talented baseball player as well. We like the dual sport athletes. So I'm going to Indian Creek.
Awesome. We got a lot of games differentiated here. I like this. So it's going to be a really good week for one of these two. We'll find out next Wednesday. Before we get out of here, what do you guys have coming this week, next week?
Well, Akeem mentioned Eugene Hilton, and Cole Ballard. We talked to 2 of the guys, and I actually talked to T.Y. About Eugene. And so we've got a story. I've got a story coming on Colts, kind of the Colts lineage of, with Chris Ballard being the GM of the Colts, his son playing quarterback. Ty Hilton's son, Eugene, playing receiver at Zionsville, and Josiah Smith is the punter at Western Boone. His dad's Hunter Smith, who was the Colts punter. And there's a couple others. Hunter Snow at Carmel, his dad, Justin Snow, longtime snapper for the Colts. So it's cool that we talk a lot about how the Colts impact high school football in a kind of a non on the field way. Just the popularity of football. Well, now you're seeing Colts, ex-players or players now playing high school. So it's kind of and it's not the first time that's happened, but quite a few of them right now. So finishing up that story today. That should be out Wednesday morning.
Awesome. Akeem, what do you got?
I've actually just been doing some research kind of behind the scenes on a project I'm working on about black baseball players. And the other part of that is actually about Oscar Charleston, one of the best Negro League baseball players and one of the best baseball players in the world. And kind of I've been just reading about him and learning about what he meant. He's from Indianapolis. I know a lot of people might not have even heard of him, but he was actually voted like the 4th best baseball player of all time at one point by Bill James. So, and I've just been reading about just the impacts he had in the Philippines, and he served in the Army, and so I'm just kind of researching that and trying to put together a project that really can just tell people about what he meant to baseball in Indianapolis as a whole. So that's kind of just what I'm working on behind the scenes. Wrestling stuff will be coming up before we know it. So just kind of just putting in some grunt work, nothing too exciting, but hopefully the finished project will be great when it's all done.
Yeah, I'm really excited to read that one, man.
Thank you.
To continue hearing about it. I know you've been at that one for a while, so it'll be great stuff. We thank you all so much for watching. We'll be back with you next week. Same time, same place. You know the drill. But for Clark, for everybody else, we'll talk to you guys soon.